The next talk is coming from our platinum sponsors, Deloitte. Our platinum sponsors, you can check out their booth down in the expo zone. But without further ado, the next topic that will be covered by Amadeusz and Jan is how to successfully scale GenAI in big organization. They're going to be covering how Deloitte was helping their clients in moving from GenAI concepts and proof of concepts to actual production. So without further ado, I give the stage to you guys.
Thank you. Does it work? Okay. All right, so thanks for having us, Amadeusz and my colleague Jan.
Hey, good morning.
I think, Jan, you wanted to start with some entertainment.
Well, yeah, because it's 12:30 and you've been listening to the talks whole morning, and we must be by the suits, the business guys. So we just need to know who is in the room. So just doing some exercise with your hands. How many of you are proper data scientists that eat Python for the breakfast and Perl for the dinner? Okay. Not many? Okay. Business people? Okay. Any marketing here? Hopefully not. Good. Okay. So the data people, please don't leave. I think it's interesting also for you, but mainly what we are going to cover is how actually the AI needs to be explained to the business C-levels, because that's who is giving us the money. Amadeusz?
Exactly, and that's exactly what we do, right? So we are always trying to combine the business and the tech world. We want to first start a bit from global perspective, and then we will show you today a couple of real projects that we run for our clients. Of course, we'll not share what was exactly done for which client, but we can, in a sanitized way, a bit share some, shed some light on the GenAI transformations that are happening globally, and me and Jan that we are co-leading. So first of all, how do we know? I mean, of course, we work for clients, but we also survey them, right? So this is a big survey we are doing dedicated to GenAI. So it's still quite fresh, right? I mean, the first edition was a year ago. It goes to 2,000 C-level people, right? So board team members, like the ones that pay for projects that Jan mentioned and initiatives, chief marketing officers, CEOs, CFOs, chief digital officers, CTIOs. And we ask them about how do they feel, how much they are aware about the topic, implementing the topic, what are their achievements, right? So that we measure globally where to learn from the best, so then we can bring it to our countries. This is quarterly report. You can scan the full report there, and some results, right? So the good news is that 2/3 of these big global organizations, they do want to invest into GenAI. They want to increase and continue investing into GenAI, and thanks to that also to AI, to data, to all of the connected topics, right? So I think the future is bright. Because there are always questions, is there a hype, does it work? Maybe people are stopping to believe. No, it's not the case, right? So globally, and we also see it locally, companies continue to invest. And why is so, right? So the reason is because indeed they see value, right? Because ultimately, if you invest in something, you want to extract something from it, right? And initially, at the beginning of this year, we mainly have seen efficiency use cases on GenAI, right? So how to extract some information, summarize document, basically reduce cost of serving client, building products, enabling services, right? So that was the prevalent main one, and you can see here in this blue, right? So efficiency and so on. But more and more we see the green color, right? Which is innovation, which is more like, generating, for example, marketing content, right? Generating new products, accelerating things. I can give you an example. Now we are working for a big retailer, so imagine grocery stores that you shop around, and they are intensively growing in terms of number of stores, so it's very important for them to open new ones, and what's holding them back is, to open a new one, it takes 40 days, 40, from the moment, we want to make a deal to the moment, this is our new store opened, let's say, of Lidl. It's not Lidl, but just to kind of, so it's clear what's the case. And the reason for this 40 days, of course, there are some price negotiations, contracts, and so on, let's say the legal stuff, but also there is so-called ping pong, so mail exchange or like, workflow exchange between people that want to open the store from this company and the central legal team. Because legal team is busy, 7 only people, they have backlog, right? So they are losing this time. What we are doing is we are deploying a GenAI supported solution that is taking all of this knowledge from all of the history of such ping pongs and results, so that it learns, what's the good kind of response to a question from this team that wants to open this, physical store in the field. And we are trying to make it as much as automated as possible, right? So shortening this 40 days to 30 or maybe even 25, which is a massive boost in the revenues of this company, right? So this is this innovation or top line or revenue or margin growth, not only this blue productivity. And we see more and more of that, right? It doesn't mean that the blue will disappear. Of course, everybody will, is cost conscious now given the global situation, right? So it will continue, but people also see more and more innovation into products and services. We then check, in terms of like readiness, how much ready company they feel they are. And we are here, again, talking about these top big companies, the best, global companies like, Coca-Cola's of the world, right? The thing is that around 40%, if you add these two numbers, and that's quite similar between, wave 2 is Q2, wave 3, Q3 this year. So around like 40% of them feel comfortable, but only 5-6% feel really comfortable with that they have what is required to achieve impact from the previous page, right? And these 6%, they get 2 times more impact from the use cases, right? So a bad retailer, doing what I just explained, this opening new store, would achieve 2 times less impact than the good one that has data scientists, data engineers, cloud architect, understands how GenAI prompting works, right? Like, is thinking not only about technology, but also like how to use it in business so that people, actually achieve impact, right? So these 6% achieve better results, and today we will bring a couple of examples from these 6%. A bit busy, I know, but AI and data, so lots of data. I just wanted to show you a bit like the flavors between sectors, because I guess like a lot of you work in different sectors and there are some nuances, right? So when you think about the previous page where I was showing this 40% of companies feeling ready, you can see that on the top, right? So generally, technology companies like Netflix, Amazons of the world, and telco media, they feel a bit more confident. Of course, public sector a bit struggles, and I can also confirm that, right? Like, there are not yet like big talents knowing how to approach that specifically for them. So they actually need a lot of external help to help them figure this out. Then, you've seen at the beginning this, increasing investment, everybody, but I think to call out again, public sector like really wants to increase investment, right? Given where they are, right? Because they see other sectors are getting impact, so they believe. And they know that they actually don't have internal capabilities, so they really want to invest. This one is important because this is about how much of the proof of concepts, proof of values that for sure a lot of you, participated in, how much of them get ready to scale, right? So that are like implemented at scale, not just, tested for 6 weeks, it was fun, we forget, but actually, all right, let's now do a 6 months, implementation of this use case. You can see that it's approximately 30 to 40%, right? So a lot of use cases fail, but it's not bad because there are lots of learnings from these to the successful ones. And last but not least, we call it risk and governance. Basically for simplicity, it's like AI Act. Yeah? AI Act, DORA, GDPR, all of that, but mainly now AI Act. And we see a lot of interest from our client, especially from banks, insurers, but also public health sector, where they ask for support on that field, right? Because AI Act is incoming, so they are like wondering how does this impact them, like, what they should change. And they totally don't feel ready for it, right? So all of them say, yeah, we don't feel we know, how to tackle AI Act with our use cases. Going a bit, what people do, right? So we can see these are like scaled GenAI solutions. So let's say this 6% that have good capabilities and went to scale. So we can see like, a lot of companies already started to do chatbots, voice bots. I mean, Jan, you actually have quite good examples of that as well for our clients in Western Europe. We see like knowledge management systems, right? So a bit helping people in branches, call centers, but not only, also like lawyers, finance teams to find, different documents. And more is incoming. So we can see actually the entire, landscape of all of the sectors is buzzing with activity. What is still, holding them down? So when you think, what's the percentage of organizations that said they are highly ready across these dimensions? So on technology and data, 45% of them only say they are ready, which is not that bad, right? So almost like every second is actually ready, but then the other ones not. Again, these are like the top companies, right? So the smaller ones would not be as ready. But when you go more and more to this dimension of risk, governance, talent, internal talent, like having this, people that know how to scale AI, here this is a clear gap that we see across. And this is like our real example of one of the largest life science companies globally. What they did is more than a year ago, they jumped together with us. It was like a leap of faith, into GenAI, huge GenAI transformation, right? So we are talking here about a company that went like more strategically to that, right? So they thought, okay, so what do we actually, like how GenAI can transform our business like fully, right? So all of the departments, all of the countries, all of the businesses, they have 150 countries that they sell pharmaceutical products, and we embark with them on this journey, and the target is huge, right? So it's like 5 to 7 billion globally that will be enabled through many GenAI use cases. I mean, there are like almost like 100 of them. Of course, not all of them are equally big, right? So like 10, 20 are the focus, and that's where we focus on at the beginning. But the ambition level is quite big. And we already see after this a bit more than a year of this transformation that we will likely reach this impact for them, right? For this organization. You can see here, this cost versus innovation, right? So 60-40, a bit even higher on innovation or revenue increase than on these previous pages because this company is a bit more advanced, right? And you can see like how do we approach it, right? So there is this topic of AI for individuals, right? So how to enable every individual in this company to actually be aware, that GenAI could support their daily work. Of course, this is a bit bottom up, very detailed, so it will not bring huge money, right? But it's just like a starter. But then AI for business, right? So how to actually think about revolutionizing big use cases. And I can give you one example, right? So for example, and like these companies buy lots of things. They spend tens of billions of dollars every year on, not only like physical things like chairs and so on, but also on digital, digital marketing, data. Like they buy a lot of data, right? These companies, AI platforms, systems, technologies, and so on. And given complexity, they do it quite decentralized. Yeah? They have 150 countries. In every country, they have different products. So a marketeer, for example, in France, from a product for diabetes, will be buying her own data. Then a Chinese, person doing other business will be buying own data, right? So everybody a bit buying their own data. What we are doing is we use GenAI to look at hundreds of thousands of such purchases when they are happening. And GenAI is like reading all of the presentations from actually companies like Deloitte, right? So because like when we want to get into service to this company, we need to create a nice presentation. We will explain what we're gonna do. They will say, we love it, let's go ahead. So we are now actually reviewing, in the moment of these negotiations, we are reviewing hundreds of thousands of such documents from Microsofts of the world, from Salesforce, from Deloitte, from others, in order to detect if we can optimize this spend. If we are, for example, buying the same data source 50 times from the same company because every country is buying separately, of course, if you bring this together, you can have massive savings, right? But in order to know that this is happening, you need GenAI. Otherwise, like nobody knows that somebody in Japan, bought some data that in Germany also was bought a year ago, right? So here you need this magic of GenAI to be able to automatically look at all of these documents, detect things, and propose solutions. A bit, like what is needed in this case to be successful. I mean, there are 6 building blocks, but I think to call out, strategy, right? So to go from this, proof of value, proof of concept to really project that I just showed you on the previous page, it does require, basically CEO of this company saying, I want to do it. Otherwise, we see companies just doing some mini POCs, but not really scaling them up because there is no faith in organization. But if somebody says, I want to do it, then you have money for capabilities, for technology, you have money for talents, right? So then you have resources that actually will be invested to do it, and only then you can scale GenAI as you've seen on this previous example. In terms of time, we typically say it takes up to 2 years to be able to really scale it, right? Because you need to start from this strategizing a bit, right? So this board member team sitting together, discussing with their teams, agreeing, yes, we actually want to do this, and that. Then you build some foundations, right? So you do some MVPs, you test it. As you've seen, 70% of them fail, which is okay, because then you learn from it. So the question is, how to actually enable several so that, if 3 out of 10 are successful, you have foundation to build on, and you start moving here, right? Because you're starting scaling, and then you bring another 10, and again, 7 will fail, 3 will not. You have a scale, and then you go to results, right? And then that's how we see the biggest, the most successful organizations are able to achieve impact from GenAI.
So it is important to say, and I'm sorry for the data scientists in the room, this is not about the best model that you can get. This is not about the specific language that you were developing. This is about the process, and I'll explain why. So let me give you an example of an international company or organization, well, to be correct. And you all know them. I cannot say the name, but if I told you, you would know them. So what we discussed with them is, how do you do with AI? And I said, yeah, we do have an AI team. We are working with Microsoft, and we are right on the track. I said, okay, where? We've got some POCs in GenAI. Okay. But we do have a huge problem with financial planning. And they showed us the process of financial planning. So in order to get money for the next year, you need to start in January and do whole year exercise for the next year. So with that, we said, okay, that's nice. Let's start with a problem. Let's start with where you are. And we identified quickly 4 points where they were spending massive amount of time. I said, okay, that's nice. So you spend 2 months in every country they operate, and it's 130 countries worldwide. In every country, they spend 10 people 2 months just to build a bunch of documents. Then they spend another 2-3 months to collect all the documents from the 130 countries and make it into one document. And then finally, they allocate the budgets, and the projects go from very small projects to very large projects, like being a school or making and digging well. So they don't have one budget for that, one template. So how do we do that? So we identified 4 use cases and said, okay, we can skip that for a time, but basically the impact of that, of those 4 use cases, just like that, is 70% decrease of the time. That's 70% of time that the people can spend in the field doing actual work. So, wow, okay. So why is that? How is it different? And we said, well, there are 3 things that you told us. 1, you are already through AI because you've been doing that with Microsoft. That's fine. But did it bring any benefits? The second, then you said, well, it didn't bring us anything, so we'll skip that for the next when it's ready. And finally, why do we want any more chatbots? We already have a number of chatbots there. So why is our project so successful? Why we were able to do that? Well, when we started first with them, they said we've got 20 MVPs in production for chatbots, for HR, for IT, for everything. But none of them were live. None of them were in production. Why? Because the people didn't know how to work with those tools. First of those made it live just 2 months back. Then the second thing was, well, they didn't give people any training on the new tools. They didn't give people the ability to work with the chatbots and with the AI. So how it can be successful? The people were really frustrated with those tools. So that's the second thing. And finally, well, it's not about chatbots anymore. And Amadeusz will show you in the tool that yes, there is AI underneath there, but it's about the problem that you want to solve. So how do we make it successful and scaled? Well, we don't start with the technology. We start with the problem. And the problem is the process. Process is how the company runs. And then we can decouple that into the technology and which technology to use. So yes, we can make a chatbot or search through documents and make a specific model for a specific situation, like maybe some convolution network or the ANN model. Fine, we can do that. But that will be the state-of-the-art model, and we'll spend 3 years of development of that model. Fine, that's okay. Will it bring any benefit? Not really. Maybe the GenAI model that is on a first glimpse so expensive can do 80% of that work, and it will be ready tomorrow. So for the business usage, for the business that is generating the money for our salaries, then we need to bring the benefit there. And that's what the data scientists typically forget. And that's one of the problems where there is a huge gap between the operations of the company and the data scientists. Because data scientists talk about the best model they can make. Brilliant model, brilliant software. That's important. But if it doesn't bring any benefit to the business, that's a lost effort. So let's go and let's do a demo of the documentary, one of the tools that we developed. And that can be one of those tools that the companies can use immediately.
So we have also a lot of internal processes in Deloitte, right? So to give you an example, like I'm from Poland. In Poland, we have a shared service center where we have people from legal teams, so lawyers, HR, finance, operations that are serving 19 countries, right? So they are, for example, getting invoices in Swedish, invoices in Romanian, in Polish, in Czech, right? So lots of invoices, lots of documents, lots of things, right? And we figured out that actually we can also, become ourselves one of these top 6% of companies that have scaled GenAI, because we actually can also do it to ourselves, right? And we did. And that's how this tool was created. We call it Documentor, it's just a name. Basically what this does is, it is a simple front end, it uses GenAI, there is lots of business logic, lots of prompt engineering, lots of additional algorithms and solutions. And I will show you it in a second with live demo, but like what you will see is, of course it can analyze text, graphic, video, everything. It can scan documents. We also have a module to scan handwritten documents, and we are testing all of the LLMs possible and other algorithms, and we are all the time selecting the best one when it comes to quality versus cost, because it's like important not to only look at which LLM is cooler and better, but also like how much does it cost, right? Because in Deloitte, when we have hundreds of thousands of these papers every year, we don't want to spend like 10 million euro on LLM to one of the hyperscalers, right? So we are optimizing that as well. It can anonymize data, right? Because we noticed that we have a lot of personal information on the different documents that, there is GDPR, so it's quite a strict requirement not to widely share such data. So we have anonymization. Of course, we can extract data into like any form we want. In an automatic way, we can summarize documents and even draft them, right? So there are lots of things when it comes to benefits, right? So what we observe, and I would say it's conservative, because actually impact is even higher, but we typically say it's like 60% of the reduction of the cost when you look at the whole manual process, right? So sometimes it's even more, like it really depends what it is. And when it comes to accuracy, we say 93% plus. And always people say, hey, but what's happening with this 7, right? I mean, if I incorrectly account for 7% of invoices in Deloitte, it's like a disaster. So actually, it's better than humans do for the first time. Yeah? So 93%, like specialists, they don't achieve 93% when it comes specifically to accounting for an invoice in the systems. And we are talking here about like really specialists, like not like interns, like just doing this a bit, but like really people who do it for years. Which is of course fine, because they do mistakes, this does mistakes. Here it's 7%, Human only was way more. And then we anyway have a second line of defense, which is like review on a second line, right? So then we get to 100, right? But this 93% actually is way better than we have today. And then given we've seen success ourselves, we started to offer this solution to our clients. And let me show you how it works. Okay, it works. Okay, so this is the tool itself, right? So how it works is we are creating new projects. And by the way, this is like a front end, so it's just for demonstration. But when you think about like implementing this type of thing at some organization, sometimes you don't even need this front end, right? You rather need these functionalities behind this. Like maybe somebody doesn't want to have black color, maybe it should be red like Coca-Cola, or I don't know, maybe Coca-Cola doesn't want to see this front end at all, right? Maybe they have some workflow, they just want to not even see this thing, right? Then there is no front end, but all of the logic that I will show you, of course, it's there. And how it works is we can upload whatever we want, full folders, files, hundreds of them. You can see here I have a demo of like several things, right? So I can click this, how we upload it, right? So when we upload it and it's like a PDF that is not editable, it will actually make it automatically editable in this form so that we can analyze it with GenAI, right? So we can put handwritten documents. In handwritten documents, the accuracy was more than 80%, and it was like a really badly handwritten document. 2 years ago, OCRs would get like 20% of it, but GenAI not only better detects the letters, but also then you can use another one to logically fill in the missing ones, right? So if you have word, SMOLL for small, and we didn't detect a letter, another GenAI model will actually fill it in, right? So that's why we have such high accuracy. If there is a scan of like good quality PDF, it's like, I would even say 100% accurate when we OCR. But OCR, of course, is just one element, right? So scanning this document and making them electronic. Here you can see like a real case of a telco company that has some master agreement, and then there were like annexes every year, and there were like many of them. They were changing some things like SLAs, things like service level of 99%, then went higher, then lower, and so on. And what we are doing, to show you like one specific module in the results, we have many modules, but to show you one, we basically upload everything and just say compare, across the time, like what were the key changes between this, 11 documents, and summarize, right? So you can see, what was the first one about, then, what was the change, SLA grew to 99.5, another, some changes, some small changes, but like maybe important for this company, and so on and so forth, right? So it very nicely summarizes everything you need. In a table form or in any form you want, that it's easy, to copy, to extract, and so on. A bit going back, what else we have here. So we have a panel of lots of functionalities. So you can see this one we use quite a lot, yeah? Metadata extractor. Basically, like we upload 10,000 documents. We say we always want 20 information, like that. 10,000 documents would take like half an hour maybe, and it can run, autonomously somewhere. One document is like super fast, it's like seconds. But 10,000 is also quite fast, in half an hour to have everything you need from 10,000 documents in a table. So you don't need to read these documents, take manually this data to a table, and then put to somebody to make some decisions in business. That's quite an achievement. We also can draft documents, right? So typically it works like you put a template, like imagine like customer service, somebody writing an email to telecom complaining about invoice billing, too high. You categorize what it is, and depending on the category, you have a template pre-filled in, and then human only needs to like just have a look before it's sent out to client, is it correct? Typically it is, okay, go ahead. And it saves tremendously time to respond to clients, so clients are served faster, there are less mistakes, there is less manual work because the first draft is done, right? Like you don't need to like type it. Of course, translation, document comparison is quite important, right? Because you can, for example, have one document and some regulation, like AI Act, right? And you can say, is it in line with these regulations, right? And we have like lots of algorithms behind that, some transactions reviewed, like timeline analysis that you've seen, and so on and so forth. And maybe to demonstrate you one more, what we did, like we took three random service terms from big companies. You can see here Atos is like public paper. We took AWS, another one very interesting to read, and Salesforce, also like everybody would love to read it in detail. And the question is, can I sign it as a company? Let's say again this Coca-Cola. Can I sign with Salesforce this thing? Will this be compliant with DORA? And DORA is this act for financial institutions. Like there are lots of rules. What you can do, what you cannot do as a financial institution. So what we did, again we have these three documents, right? So we have Salesforce, we have AWS, and we have Atos. We put them in, and then in results, what we did is like we compared them to DORA, to the act, right? So we uploaded each of them, and automatically compared, to this regulation. And we always have the same output, right? So we can kind of do this in a way that you just pass through, terms of these things. You say, I want this result, and you always get the result that you need, right? So you have like, what was the checklist? What was the requirement? What is the gap? Gap meaning something is non-compliant with this regulation, right? So let's say the Salesforce statement of terms is not compliant with this DORA regulation. And then, the reason, right? And this is fantastic for lawyers because they don't need them to read through everything from scratch, but they see, I need to focus on Article 30 because, in point 2.1, in section 2.1 of this, Atos, there is a problem, right? So this saves hours of time of very precious people who are lawyers, who are always busy, they have backlogs, right? And now they can be more productive, right? And you can see, it's like in any way we want. In this case, we can export it to Excel and so on, right? And it's quite long because this regulation is quite long, right? And you can see that automatically generated for everything. And maybe last thing to add, because you can extract this in this way, or you can use our AI agent. It's like ChatGPT basically, right? That you just say in search which project you want to focus on. So let's say this regulatory, and this one. And then you basically can, type whatever, and this will work like ChatGPT. You can, select specific documents you want to only ask if you don't want to ask from all three documents, right? So there are like, we enable different ways for different people because everybody likes to a bit work in GenAI in different way. Yeah.
So the scientists know that the AI is always domain specific. The problem is always one problem. I need to solve that problem. The way how to scale up the AI is not having one omni model that we can train on zillion of GPUs. I would love to see that. I would love to play with that, but it's not financially feasible. So the way how this can be done is a different one. So if we go back to the surveys that Amadeusz showed in the beginning, one of the charts is particularly interesting. From all the projects, AI projects that the company started in the past 12 months, only 30% survived. The 70% were killed by the company. Why? Because there is no business case. There was no progress. The data didn't show up. So the businesses started those AI enthusiast projects, and now they are killing those. Because obviously there needs to be benefit in there. So the second thing is, when you give the new tool, like the tool that Amadeusz just showed, can you operate the tool? Well, not really, because it's complicated. If you don't give the training on the tool, if you don't give people the training on how to use the natural language interface, it will be a disaster. And that's actual results from one of our projects here. So first, 1 to 5 scored, it doesn't work, 5 works well. We gave the people the tool for UAT, for testing, without any training. Because it's GPT, everybody uses GPT, so everybody understands, right? And the results were terrible. Like 2.7 out of 5, the score to pass the UAT was 4. So we didn't pass the UAT and said, okay, why did we not pass? Well, maybe we didn't train them. So for the next round, we did no change on the AI model. And the complaints were, AI is not accurate. AI doesn't work. So for the next round, we actually gave the people training. We handhold them. You write the query like this. You gave the task AI like this. We changed nothing on the AI. We slightly tweaked the UI so that the people would not see it's not changed. And guess what? We got 4.6. It's so high that the board of the organization actually asked if it's not fraud. That's twice better than whatever they had before. Why? Because they didn't give people training. So closing this, so that we got some room for questions potentially. The AI is not about the technology itself. It's important. Yes, the AI model is important, but it will not generate the benefit for the company. Therefore, if it will not generate the benefit, the company will kill it. So if you're talking about scaling AI, we need to start with the problems and how we are going to solve them. And then we can play with the models. And of course, there are tons of platforms. Like Livian showed one of the platforms that you can use. Or you can use Documentary. Will it save hundreds of FTEs on single use case? Probably not. But you can make hundreds of use cases, use in hundreds of different cases the same tool. And then the generation of that one use case costs you about 5 days and will save about 1,500 days a year. That's the return of the investment. So on scaling, the companies shouldn't look for huge AI one-shot benefit. That probably will not happen. They need to do that gradually with hundreds of use cases in the secure environment, in the secure platform, with a tool and people that understand how that will change the work, not how the data will change. And data are important, of course, because without the correct data, without the correct inputs, the output of AI will be rubbish. But the people need to understand why, because the data, not about the AI. So that's it. Thank you very much for waiting with us for lunch. And I think we've got 1 minute for question.
Yeah, well, we actually have a couple of minutes if you guys need. But first of all, thank you for your presentation. And you too, Amadeusz.
Thank you.
So yeah, are there any questions for these guys? Feel free.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. Actually, at the moment in DACH at least, Austria, Germany, etc., the economy is kind of decreasing. So do you think it's a chance for AI, or is it like, or they don't want to make investments? So for us, it's not pretty clear.
Amadeusz, do you want?
Yeah, sure. I mean, not an easy question, right? Like a bit depends, on the value, because I think in these moments companies are more cost cautious. So like the project that I talked about, this procurement transformation is like amazing for that, right? If they would have a problem that they are overspending on, Microsoft of the world, Salesforce of the world, like, they have many countries and headquartered in Austria, in Vienna, let's say, running the globe, then that could be good for them, right? To then, cut costs.
To have an ROI focus.
Exactly, because this will not hurt their internal capabilities, right? But they are, like, let's say, saving on the outside vendors, and then they can either just get pure impact or reinvest it into growth. So actually, my company is in a lucky situation because, life science sector is quite healthy. So they are doing that just to have money for additional initiatives. So they're gonna have, hundreds of millions of euros to spend on something else instead of like duplicated, data from vendors or technologies and so on.
And I think there are basically two kinds of use cases for AI, and I definitely think it's a chance how to make them profitable, how to make them healthy. One type of use case is where AI is core, where you want to make projection of some, development of money, or specifically for the company, right? like energy consumption in the energy company, right? How the water will flow on the water electricity plants in Austria. That's like bespoke model that you want to build. And then you've got the horizontal use cases that are the same for every company. HR, IT help desk, all those things that are always the same. So why should you build that in-house? So most of the companies have got data science teams. They should focus on specific cases for their company. And then they will be fine. And then everything else you can buy from market. And that will be cheap, and it can be fast reduction of costs or support of growth, depending on which situation you are. We started with DACH, which is down. I mean, of course, it's fancy to have BMW having a humanoid welder. Okay. Will it make a difference? Not today. But can they save money with the documentary? Of course they can. Must it be documentary? No, there is 100 other platforms like that on the market. So there's a huge, huge potential for that.
Thank you.
In your example of the dog monitor, I have two questions. First is, where did the data reside, with Deloitte, on Deloitte servers or in company servers? That's the first question. And the second question is, particularly large companies have very strict confidentiality rules for documents and contracts, like internal use, confidential, strictly confidential. How did you and the company deal with this when they upload these documents?
So all options are possible. Yeah, so all options are possible. Typically, it's easier to have it on our cloud, which can be any cloud provider, let's say, Azure, for example, because we are also a very strict company, so we went through all of the cybersecurity rules. It was a massive, actually, thing to do.
Yes, I can imagine.
In Deloitte globally, so not even like that we did in local countries. Like it went to US, like lawyers, security, cybersecurity, data. Everybody was there, right? And then we got this stamp. Yeah, it's tested.
Okay.
For example, with companies like Microsoft, we have a legal arrangement written that they will not be using this data from our instance on their infrastructure and not training. We tested, so kind of we trust, right? But and it's also like signed by them, right? So it also took some effort. But we also do installations, let's say integrations. Can even be on-prem without cloud. Of course, then you don't have these best LLM models, but you have these open source models, which also sometimes are right. Yeah, so I would say all of the options. Yeah.
One important thing about GenAI models, like GPT, Claude, Mistral, you name those, it's a fixed model. So we don't, with those use cases, you don't train the model.
Yeah.
So it's just, if you already have the data on cloud, in OneDrive, on S3, on Google Drive, there is no additional risk.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're about done with the time, but if it's a quick question, we can go, but then afterwards.
Yeah, it depends. Coming from a big enterprise, I could really resonate with the ideas that you've shared also from this AI journey. But I'm curious to learn in Deloitte, how do you deal internally with these challenges? Because you're always advising people, right? But do you actually practice what you preach? Or are all the things already working super well? And now we are a small round, so you can be honest. So,
I think our time is up, so thank you so much.
I would like to say that this is being recorded, so still be aware.
But we can censor it, right, or not? It's like live feed?
We can do some.
All right, then I can say. No, so actually, we did it to ourselves as well, yeah? So it's not always the case, of course, you're right? A lot of times, we hear, and that's also reality, right? That consultants advise others, but don't themselves, right? And have complex processes, like regulations internally, because like nobody ever wanted to improve it, right? This time it's different because it was so new and so exciting to everybody that we are together in Central Europe, kind of part of Deloitte. It's like 19 countries. Czech Republic, Poland, Czechia, Poland, Hungary, Baltics, Ukraine, everybody, right? Like 19 countries.
Serbia,
of course. And A year ago, we brought leaders from all of the different businesses, and Deloitte, you have also everything. You have lawyers, you have tax advisors, you have auditors, you have us, so a bit technology guys, right? So you have everybody. We took everybody and we discussed, okay, so what do we want to do to ourselves with GenAI? And there were like hundreds of ideas, even more than 100, 200, I think. And of course, then we had to prioritize. And we prioritized 6. And one of them was Documentor for lawyers. So this tool I was showing, it was actually created for lawyers at Deloitte. But it started to work so well that we started to discuss it, broadly with many sectors. Like, banks are excited. For example, in banks, we have this real estate documents when there is a mortgage decision.
Just for the timeline, when was that, roughly?
It takes
it's
a
fresh.
lot of time.
It's like,
Was it like this year or 2 years ago?
no, more like this. More like a bit more than a year ago we strategized. I would say 40 months ago. Then it took some time, to conclude. On the 6 out of 100, everybody, The other 94 were not happy, right? So we started with 6. One of them was Documentor. To build the first version, it was fast. But then to really persuade lawyers to use it, they were like, hey, we don't want to use it. I mean, we know how to do our work. Like, why would we do some kind of automation? It will be wrong. And it was wrong at the beginning. So sometimes accuracy at the beginning is like 20, 30%. But then we worked with them, we injected their knowledge into Documentor, so that is now this 93+%. It takes like 2-3 months for a specific use case, if it's a new use case. If it's already figured out, then of course it's more like a week. Yeah?
And it's always like every other company. To develop a software, develop a model, develop a piece of web application, that's like no time. 4 weeks, 5 weeks. To make the adoption in a company, that's a different question. So our projects are about the transformation, not about the software development itself, because that's where the companies need help. To pass the barriers of legal, compliance, security, adoption, people not understanding. That's the project. That's why we call it business transformation. Supported by AI, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for the wonderful presentation.